Hey everyone, Stacks here, checking out X-Men #3, Jonathan Hickman writing, Leinil Francis Hugh on the art with Sunny Go and Rain Barreto on colors. So a bit of predicting here of what you're going to see in reviews for this book across YouTube, across wherever you check out your comic book reviews. You're going to have a group of people that absolutely love this book and think it's hilarious, and then you're going to have a group of people that absolutely hate it, and you will see why very shortly. I do want to give Leinil Francis Hugh some credit here. I feel like his art, his pencils have gotten a lot better since X-Men 1. There were some scenes in that were absolutely beautiful, but there were some scenes that were really bad too. And I think some of the characters in this issue play to his strengths as far as what he's good at drawing. I'll go ahead and tell you, I also love the dialogue in this one. I think it's great. It's not goofy. It's just really well written. You'll get to it in a minute. And the white pages are good. But guys, let's dive into the book. I'll talk about all of that more here in a little bit. Also, if you missed my Black Friday sale, subscriptions are still free till the end of forever. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button and let's get going. So the book starts in the Savage Lands, and you have a bunch of mutants that are there harvesting the Krakoan flowers. When suddenly you have this sizzling popping sound, and you have suddenly a couple, 3 people, 4 people coming through the Krakoan portal. And of course this is throwing everybody off because the only thing that's supposed to be able to travel through these Krakoan portals are mutants. So they're confronted by a couple mutants who are like, hey, I don't recognize you guys. You new around here? You new mutants to the island? They're like, yeah, we're new here, but mutants? Nah, we're not mutants. And once they say that, they hit them with some Slimer green ooze stuff and just coat them in this stuff, and it completely disables them. And one of the mutants is, of course, like, why are you doing this? And they're like, isn't it obvious? We just love the, and I'm serious here, this is what it says, we just love the S word out of your flowers. Somehow the inability to reach the Savage Lands is immediately processed by the Quiet Council. They get together and they immediately bring Cyclops in and they plan to dispatch him. But as Emma shows up, it gets a little catty between her and Jean. She strolls in late, Jean calls her on it, and Emma replies, in with the wind, not a hair out of place. And Jean shoots back with, I gotta tell you, I love those shoes. And Emma is like, well, why thank you? I would offer to let you borrow them at some point, but they're probably a couple sizes too small for you. And Jean replies, well, that's so kind of you, but I'm not big on borrowing things. That's really more kind of your thing, isn't it? And with that, they start the meeting. And we find out throughout the notes that comes up on the white page that basically Krakoa is screaming. There is something, whatever this forced seizure of a Krakoan gate, it's causing all kinds of second and third order effects. So for instance, the animals on the island are a lot more aggressive, but none of that is the actual really interesting part here. The part that is really interesting, it's how they are feeding Krakoa. So we all understand that Krakoa is a sentient life form. The island is a being. It is sentient, and it has to therefore feed. And what it feeds on is the psychic energy of other mutants. So when they're on the island, it is actually consuming psychic energy, and typically it consumes 2 mutants per year. That's basically the cost of doing business so that they have a stable environment. So each one of these citizens, they knowingly allow Krakoa to feed off them. And with this many mutants being on the island, it doesn't really have that big of an impact. And all the mutants there are happy to do it. There's also a lot of protocols in place to ensure that Krakoa isn't exceeding that minimum physical draw, that it's not feeding too much. There are also 2 mutants in place that are tasked with doing that on the island, Selene and Implate, which I'm not familiar with right off the top of my head, but they've been tasked to observe Krakoa, and they also get observed so that they're not consuming too much psychic energy. But for whatever reason, with all this stuff going on, it's causing Krakoa to feed more. Back in the Savage Lands, the aggressors who have somehow breached a Krakoan portal, they basically say, look, that wasn't much of a fight. And they're like, yeah, well, you kind of went after the little flower power children here. You didn't go after the heavy hitters. Well, one of the attackers makes the comment that I just expected more spirited security. And then things get a little weird when one of them replies, "No, I don't have social security. I don't get social security." That's when they start unmasking and you realize that the Golden Girls have just invaded the Savage Lands and taken them from Krakoa. And the dialogue and the interaction between these four is absolutely great. It's worth reading. Go pick this book up. Not to go into the dialogue too much though, they actually are there and they're there to pick some of the Krakoan flowers. From there, we jump to the Outback, where Cyclops, Sebastian Shaw, and Emma Frost have all arrived. And Sebastian Shaw is basically like, what in the world are we doing here? I fail to see how this gets us any closer to the Savage Lands. And he's like, well, Cyclops, that is like, well, we actually are closer, but we're here to find that guy. That's our way off to the Savage Lands. And, of course, they find Gateway. For those not familiar with Gateway, he's an Aborigine mutant who has the ability to create gateways, very conveniently named, that individuals can travel through. He was in Marauders #2, where he did the same thing. He's drawn a lot better and more to the character in X-Men 3. But once they catch up to Gateway, Cyclops leads Sebastian Shaw and Emma right through. They're expecting to find a challenge there. They're expecting to find a fight there, and what they find is, what Emma calls we've been invaded by octogenarians. That's unexpected. And of course they don't take an aggressive stance with them. Instead they're like, look, you ladies have caused a bit of a ruckus and a lot of people are upset. Would you mind introducing yourself? And one of the ladies says, we are horticulture. Sebastian Shaw misunderstands it and says, horticulture? And one of the old ladies quickly corrects him and says, no, horticulture. Can't talk. No, horticulture. No one cares to hear about all the whoring that Augusta did through Kansas. Well, this old lady, who apparently just does a lot of running around, starts to stand up for herself, and the other one says, speaking of unsavory women, look, this one looks like a tart. And this other old woman chimes in and goes, she dresses like an S word and has a serious P word problem. You need to wash yourself, girl. And the response here in this panel is hilarious. Sebastian Shaw is just laughing. Emma is stunned, and Scott just has to look away. He's like, I cannot believe what I'm hearing right now. From there, Sebastian Shaw kind of inserts himself and says, let me handle this. He steps forward and he delivers this response to them that is absolutely hilarious. And it is, it is a page of dialogue, but it is a page of dialogue worth reading because the way he talks to these women in his stuck-up, snooty, matter-of-fact way is just, it's so awesome. And once he's finished and delivered his ultimatum, what they do is they respond by shooting him in the face with that Slimer green gunk, and then they hit him with some gas and knock him out, and they just commence in beating the fire out of him, yelling, no deal. You hear that, you creepy old man? Old, no deal. And then Cyclops blasts a warning shot, tips over one of the wheelchairs, and is like, stop, I have to go to work. And he makes really, really quick work of him. Is standing there like a boss, like, okay, are we done now? And that's when he realizes apparently he's hurt one of these old ladies, like broke her hip. She's sitting there screaming in pain. Well, because Cyclops, he's a nice guy, he goes over to help her out and gets shot in the face, and the same thing happens to him. They commence in beating the fire out of him until finally Emma Frost inserts herself and says, enough. And when Emma asks the question, what is wrong with all of you? That's when we get the deep dive explanation of just who these people are. And what we find out is that they are actually a group of botanists, and they have a plan. And what has happened is that basically the powers of the world have taken life, taken seeds, and made them to where plants don't reproduce anymore. Like, when you buy a tomato at the store, there are certain tomatoes that you can plant the seeds and you can grow another tomato. However, there are others that the seeds don't germinate. You can't grow anything from them because the seeds are deadened. And one of the points of these ladies is that they've done that on purpose. They've done that for the almighty dollar. They've they've made it to where you can't grow your own food. You have to be dependent on them in order to eat and survive. So basically, big market is deciding who gets to survive, who gets to eat, who gets to have food on their table, and who doesn't. When, you know, rather than just buying one tomato and being able to grow an entire season's worth the next year. Their point ultimately is that they got into botany in order to create plants to feed people and help save lives, and the absolute opposite has happened. I probably dove into that way too far, but I thought it was really interesting, so I apologize. Well, one of the things they've done is over time they've developed their horticulture seed. And this, once they activate it, is basically going to put them in control of the world's food supply. So because of their expertise in botany, they are enemy number one to Krakoa. And now they have seeds. They're going to go back and investigate and experiment on these things and see what they can do to manipulate it and how they can improve it. Basically, Krakoan seeds have fallen in the wrong hands. The reason that they didn't take a Krakoan portal on the trip to destroy the mother mold was because of this reason. This is now in possibly the worst hands possible. It's not in Orcus's hands, but this is a big deal. These individuals are a direct threat to the island. They're a direct threat to Krakoa, and they shouldn't be handled with kids' gloves. You can't worry about breaking their hips. It's probably about time to take them out. There's one final white paper after this, and it talks about each one of the individuals of horticulture and goes into their expertise and personalities a little bit. They also talks about their base, which is called the Green Thumb, which is a mobile base that apparently moves location every lunar cycle. Sounds pretty interesting. I'm interested to see how the dynamics of all that works out. And worth noting, the next issue is named, once you break the cipher, A Seat at the Table. Overall, I've read all 3 of the X books, and I will say this is definitely my recommendation of the week. But I've got to say, just kind of hinting into my reviews for Excalibur and for Marauders, both books, all 3 books from the in the X series were really good this week. Let's see, I also picked up the Annihilation Scourge Fantastic Four and Annihilation Scourge Nova books. Also picked up Venom 2099, and my shop, their whole order didn't get delivered, so I'm still waiting to pick up Doctor Doom number 3. So I'll focus on getting my X title reviews out here in the next couple days, and then hopefully by this weekend I'll be able to drop one for whichever book I like the best. I think I'm probably going to do Venom 2099 just by the looks of it and from people I've talked to. Back to my closing comments on X-Men number 3. Jonathan Hickman is absolutely killing it. The dialogue in this, I didn't read it word for word because but it's really, really good. The conversation and the back and forth between these old ladies is absolutely fabulous. I mean, I laughed out loud a couple times. That Emma Frost scene was one in particular that just got me for whatever reason. Also, Francis Leinil, his art, I believe, is improving. I think this issue was a lot better than the previous. I think he's got an upward trajectory. I think he's getting a little bit more comfortable with these characters, and I hope that's the case. And finally, I think the characterization was really good in this book. Sebastian Shaw, his dialogue, man, when he stepped up and started talking to the horticulture team, it was hilarious. Just the way he delivered it. Guys, highly recommend on this book. Definitely go grab it. Hope everyone has an outstanding rest of the week. Hope you'll take the time to like the video, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Help me level up in this game of YouTube. Trying to close in on 3,000 subscribers. I can't believe I've come this far, and can't do it without each and every one of y'all's help. So I appreciate it. And if you don't mind, if you take the time to share one of the videos that you like on social media, whether that's Facebook or Twitter. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. You can look me up at comic_stacks. I'm not on Facebook. But if you get on there and shoot something out, let me know. I'd appreciate it. Just like I said, helping grow the channel, help grow in the comment section, and starting to get some of those conversations going down there, which I love seeing, guys. I sincerely appreciate you listening and watching, and I hope you guys have a good rest of the week. That's all I got. Real Comic Stacks out.